In this video, we're going to be looking at the law of sines. And so law of sines kind of corresponds with sine. And so if you remember, for sine, we have to know the opposite over the hypotenuse. And so when we're doing this one here, we're going to be looking at the sides that are opposites of our angle. So when we look here, angle A, notice that we're denoting angles with capital letters. Angle A corresponds with the side that's across from him, and we're going to denote that with a lowercase a. Angle B corresponds with side B, and angle C corresponds with side C. Again, capital letters are for angles, and lowercase letters are representing the sides here. And so the law of sines, the important thing about law of sines is that this will work for any type of triangle. It does not need to be a right triangle. All right, that's the important thing about law of sines, is that it'll work for any triangle. And I tend to use this relationship here rather than the one on the right. And this says sine of angle A is a ratio to side A, little a. And that can be set up as a proportion to sine of angle B over its corresponding side B. Or we can use sine of angle C as a ratio to his corresponding side. We don't have to use all three of them. We're actually going to use two of them depending on the information that we're given. So to be able to do this, to be able to use law of sines, we have to know an angle. We have to know an angle, and we have to know the side that is opposite that angle, because sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So that's why we have to know the side that is opposite of the angle. So when we look at this first example here, and I start labeling, I see angle A, okay, is 115 degrees, and across from him, this would be side A. So I'm going to label that with a lowercase a. Here's angle B, and so this 11 will be side B. So I'm going to denote that with a lowercase b. And then lastly, I do not know angle C, but I see that across from him is lowercase c. So I say, what information do I know? Because to set up law of sines, I need to know an angle and a side that is across from that angle. And so the only thing that I know there is that sine of angle A, which is 115 degrees, and I do know the side that is opposite of angle A, and that is 20. So again, sine of whatever angle over its corresponding side. And I say to myself, what other information do I know? The only other value I know here is side B is 11. Sides go on the denominator. And that's side B. And so on the top, on the numerator, I'm going to write that that corresponds with sine of angle B. But I do not know angle B. That is my variable here that I'm trying to solve for. So we're going to cross multiply. That's how you solve a proportion. That's all numbers there. So I'm just going to type in the calculator 11 times sine of 115. And the calculator is going to tell me 9.97. Putting down my equal sign. When I cross multiply this way, since I have a variable, I cannot put that in the calculator. I literally write 20 times sine of angle B. Angle B is my variable that I'm trying to solve for. There's a couple of different things over there bothering him. First thing I'm going to get rid of is this 20 that's multiplying. So obviously I'm going to do the inverse. I'm going to divide both sides by 20. Leaves me with sine of angle B. I can put this in the calculator, 9.97 divided by 20, and the calculator tells me that's 0.5 after rounding. And now here's the tricky part. we're trying to solve for b. I'm trying to get b by itself. And I'm like, well, what's over there bothering b? And it's sine, okay? Remember in the previous lesson, all right, this is not multiplying. This is not multiplying. In the previous lesson, we solved for an angle, all right? And you had to do the inverse of sine to both sides. That's the inverse. That's the opposite. That's how you get rid of the sine that's there bothering angle B, okay? But whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other side as well. All right, so this is going to cancel here because they're inverses of each other and leave me with just angle B. And here I have to put this in the calculator. Sine inverse, okay, remember you have to hit second and then sine, of 0.5. I put that in the parentheses and I hit enter. And the calculator tells me that that is 30 degrees because that's talking about an angle. Angle B would be 30 degrees. So on this slide, we're just kind of getting an overview of how to set up the proportion. And on the next slide, we're going to do a little bit more with it. Okay, so here we have two examples, but notice our directions. Our directions say to solve the triangle. This is very important. When your directions say to solve the triangle, that means you need to find all three sides and all three angles. You need to know every single part of the triangle, and if it's not given, then you're going to need to find it in some way, shape, or form. And so when I look at this triangle, I'm going to start labeling some things. So here's angle A is 51 degrees. Across from him, this 18 would be side A. So I'm going to label that with a lowercase a. Here, this 17 is across from angle C, and so I'm going to label him with a lowercase c. And then here's angle B, which I don't know, but across from him would be side B, which I also do not know, side B. And so I'm like, well, which ones do I know? Remember, to use law of sines, I have to know an angle and the side that's across from him. The only one that I know both of those parts is with angle A and side A. So I'm going to start off saying sine of angle A, which is the 51, over his corresponding side, which is 18. I'm going to try to find another side angle relationship to use for the other side of my proportion. The only other value I know here is side C. Remember, sides go on the denominator. So in the numerator, I'm going to write sine of angle C, which I do not know. That's my variable that I'll be solving for. So I'm going to cross multiply. Since that's a variable, I can't actually put that in the calculator. I'm going to write 18 times sine of this mystery angle C that I do not know. When I cross multiply this direction, though, those all numbers, I can put that all in the calculator, and 17 times sine of 51 is 13.21. I'm trying to solve for C here, and I say, what's bothering C? Well, we have a couple of things over here bothering him, but I'm going to concentrate on getting rid of that 18 that's currently multiplying. So I'm going to divide both sides by 18. Leaves me with sine of angle C. I can put in the calculator 13.21 divided by 18, and the calculator tells me that that's approximately 7.73. Again, I'm trying to solve for angle C, and so I'm going to have to do the sine inverse to both sides. Okay, so that's angle C. Now, even though I've written this backwards, hopefully you know from the previous lesson that you have to hit sine inverse first in the calculator by hitting second and sine, and then say sine inverse of 0.73. And that should give you 46.89. This is an angle, so this is in degrees. All right? All right, now, so that's angle C. Angle C right there is 46.89 degrees. All right, the good thing is in finding all three sides and all three angles, finding all three angles is actually pretty easy, because we know from geometry that the angles inside of a triangle have to add up to 180 degrees. So I knew the 51 starting off, so let me take that out. And I just figured out the angle C is 46.89 degrees, so let me subtract that out. And that's going to tell me that the leftover degrees that must be for angle B is 82.11 degrees for angle B. So I currently now know all three angles. Do I know all three sides? And the answer is no. I do not know side B. So I kind of have a choice as to which I want to use for the other side of my proportion, but I'm going to stick with the sine of 51 because he's not a decimal. If I had used C down here, I totally could, but he's a decimal. I just don't want to deal with that. So I'm going to stick with the sine of 51, which corresponds with the 18. And I'm trying to find, the only one I don't know is side B. The angle that corresponds with B is the 82.11 that we just found. So I set up my proportion. I'm going to cross multiply. This is all numbers here, so I can put that in the calculator. 18 times sine of 82.11 is 17.83. When I cross multiply this way, since that's a variable, can't actually do that in the calculator, I'm just going to write that that's B times sine of 51. Now, I'm trying to solve for B here. Right? Here's B. What's bothering him? He's being multiplied by sine of 51. This is all one combined thing. They stick together, okay? B is being multiplied by all of that. So I'm going to divide by all of that. Think about it as if it's just a number value. It is a number value. I can just put it in the calculator, and that's what we need to do. It's going to cancel. Okay, in the calculator, 17.83 divided by sine of 51 tells me that side B, lowercase b, because it's representing a side, is 22.94. No degrees, because that's not an angle. That's a side. We now know all three sides. And we know all three angles. We have solved that triangle. Notice he's not a right triangle. He's a regular triangle, but I have solved and found all